Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. 2015 has drawn to a close, but the history of what happened in our region and the stories that stayed with us impact us even now. What was in the news last year that affected us, touched our hearts, aroused our fears, and made us think? Here with us in our studio are two repeat offenders from our two major newspapers in this region, Crista Zivanovic of the Times and Jerry Davich with the Post Tribune. I like the two offender reference because you guys have been here for like four times now.
We have.
So, and that's the repeat part.
The offender
part, I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't you guys irritate people a lot?
No, I irritate people a lot.
Oh, I think I do too.
So,
But you are much more visible. I have the
being an
luxury
offender.
of being offensive
no, maybe she meant
quietly.
you're much more irritating.
Oh, is
That's
that how it
possible.
works?
I don't
Maybe
know.
it is, Krista.
No, Jerry, as you know, Jerry and I used to work together, so we're actually good friends.
Yeah,
I know.
long time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy having you guys on the show. This is one of my favorite shows that we do every year to kind of look back at the stories. And you guys always have such interesting observations about all this stuff.
Clearly, we love it too.
We always think so many things maybe do not happen in our region, but if you look back, like we just did the last week or so for this show, we always go, my God, so many
Yes,
things happen,
yeah.
and we kind of forget that it is
Yes.
a hotbed of activity here.
Yes, it is. It is.
So,
Both good and bad.
Both good and bad,
both
yeah.
good and bad. So, well, let's get started. Do we let ladies go first this time?
Sure,
you
of
think?
course, yeah.
I don't know where to begin because there's so much crazy stuff that
Well,
went on.
we're kind of looking at your notes, and we
I
kind of wonder why you
know. Well,
don't know how to
I
begin.
know.
Doodles.
Yes, doodles. Well, the two ones that interested me the most were Mayor Soderquist, former Lake Station mayor, and his wife
Yes.
being indicted, and on September 11th they were convicted of using both campaign funds and food pantry money to support a gambling habit of several years' duration. And I think it's very sad. I don't make light of any addiction, but it was rather shocking. I think people were surprised by that. And
Yeah,
then
but
also,
the news there, was the news the addiction or was the news the public corruption?
The public corruption.
People, I think,
absolutely.
overlook the addiction, like they didn't care about the
Well,
addiction.
I know, and I think that
there was an
so
addiction.
much of crime, there's underlying, and it's often drugs and addiction. I think that's the untold
But you're
story.
right. It always
that,
spins into look at public corruption, particularly
Right.
for our region.
Especially for Lake
Right.
County.
Well, and you know,
Yes.
there's a lot of people up here, and particularly downstate, who like to point out, see, there you guys go again.
Yes,
Right.
that's
When
all we
really-
need is one a year, and that'll.
Right, exactly.
that'll
Well, and then we
reinstill our
had East
reputation.
Chicago Councilman Robert Battle, who won re-election. He ran unopposed, but
Well,
there
behind-
actually were people who voted for him. Elvia Malagone, our reporter, was in East Chicago the night of the election, and constituents said, I don't want to judge him because he did really well for our ward,
Right.
for our neighborhood. She listed, enumerated the things that she felt he did for children, for young people, and just so people are aware, he was for murder. I can't think of the word. Indicted for murder, both at the state level and federal level, and he is now working with the feds. And people didn't realize he's been working with the feds since September.
True.
When he was stopped in Portage and was found to have 72 grams of marijuana and $100,000 in
Right, that's the
cash.
string attached to that case.
So those two are my sort of, oh wow.
Yeah,
you
Soderquist was high on my list also because it's an uproar. We're like surprised, but we're never surprised.
Yes.
And even with this coming year, 2016, there's going to be another public official in Northwest Indiana who's going to be indicted and possibly convicted of public corruption. We're all going to go, oh, and then go, eh.
So why are we
Yeah.
surprised and not surprised? I mean, why do we have that reaction?
Because we think that who has the guts, or whatever that word would be, to
Exactly,
the arrogance
exactly.
to do it again after all these convictions that happened almost every year, from George Van Til to Pastrick, George Pabay. The list goes on
And
and
then
on
you're
and on.
surprised that you didn't find out about it sooner. I mean, this was
How did
going
we not
on
know, right?
since, I guess, 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah,
that
how
you-
do we not know?
So the question always becomes, is this a culture thing? Is it within that culture, even within our culture up here, how easy it is to kind of, well, just kind of going to mess around and take some money or do that? Or is this just really regular people with problems? Addiction,
It's
drugs.
both. It's obvious a
both.
person with
It's
problems,
both.
but it's a person in Lake County. We grow this, we foster this, we nurture
Yeah.
this in a way. And even though people think they're never going to get caught, which always astounds me, I guarantee in 2016 somebody's going to get caught again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wonder, first we should play a game.
And you guys
Who's
should
going to
be
get
writing a
caught?
story.
Yeah, exactly. Because I would never have thought Mayor Soderquist.
Right.
Would-
So would you like to publicly predict that?
No.
Right here,
No
Jerry?
names, no.
No
Sorry,
names.
no names.
So how about a top story for you?
I was impressed with all the public opposition to certain developments and projects in this region, and it worked. Usually these public protests are like token. You get the same 4 people, hugging a tree. Don't knock this down. Let's protect this. But let's say for the Indiana State Park, the banquet center, and alcohol-based and all that kind of stuff, that really raised.
That was on my.
That was a hot issue, and people were putting signs in their lawn, and people who would
Even
never.
in Lake County. I saw
Yes,
signs.
exactly. And even people who would never protest, not that kind of protesting people, they were out protesting and demonstrating, going to meetings, making calls, sending emails, forwarding
So that was
things.
kind of the pinnacle event. Were there several others? You
I
kind of
think,
said
well, there was
several
also a
articles.
charter school in Valparaiso that got kind of denied or shot down. And it was public opposition again. The detention center in Hobart, that
Yeah.
ripple effect that happened
And
just this
then in
past.
Gary, they really
The same
scotched
kind
it,
of
yes.
immigration center again, or detention
Yes,
center again in
yes.
Gary. and
Near
that-
the airport, it wasn't even really
No,
necessarily
it wasn't at all,
near
So
right.
this is
the
a good
neighborhood.
sign that we're actually seeing citizens.
That's my point.
Who are stepping up. But
Yes.
low voter turnout was still an issue here. Was
Yeah.
that even a
Lower
story?
than ever.
That was one of my.
It,
yeah,
it actually wasn't even.
It's sad. It's just sad that voters are not going out on election day. The upside is this public opposition. I guess if something matters to you in this region, then you will step up, which is a good sign.
It'd be interesting to know if the people protesting are really voters and are voting.
I wondered
I
that
bet they
actually
are,
in
but-
Chicago, but that's a whole nother
Yeah, right.
can of worms. But I wondered all the people who were protesting against Mayor Emanuel, did you go vote against him?
Right.
Just was curious. But
I don't
anyway,
think so.
back to the region.
Yeah.
So how about another story on your side?
Let me see, what else do I have here? Well, the E911, this is another, this is the poster child for Lake County's dysfunction.
Yeah.
And you couldn't even say that this was fun. I mean, this was more than fun of dysfunction. We had 5 years to get our act together.
5
All
years.
91 counties did it with nary a ripple.
Except
Somehow
so
it took
true.
5 years. And we still have 2 outliers who wanted to form their own, Cedar Lake and Cherville. On the one hand, it is surprising because they completely defied state law. This was not something Lake County even wanted. It was state law. On the other hand, you can see their point because they felt like it was going to cost a lot of money and still have problems, which it did. We had 3 deaths that
Right.
they are thinking were attributed to this messed up system where you call the dispatcher takes everything, then the dispatcher calls someone else to go there, and we had an off-duty NICD officer who died of a heart attack. He was in a Gary church. They got there, they're pounding on the door, no reply. Well, if you are dying, you're not going to be able to reply and open the door.
I didn't see much though in the stories that said that Cedar Lake and Cherville were going, so, see?
No,
Oh,
I,
they-
maybe
were-
privately. I didn't see it publicly.
Yeah, financially wise, they think that it's a waste because Lake County spent millions and millions of dollars on new equipment and they're building a cell tower and all these other things, and yet they're still having these problems.
I guess it's hard to
So-
say, see, I'm right when somebody dies.
That's true, of
You
course.
know,
That's-
it's a little like jumping
That's going
on.
over the line.
And they are mediating. They do have a mediator now, but I still don't know what the outcome is going to be of that. So that's my next volley into the dysfunction
You guys are
of
really
Lake County.
good at, because you're really picking stories that there's multiple stories that tie to these things.
Yes,
you know, that I
yes.
think that's
They're very
maybe one
layered,
of the
I
things
would
that make
say.
it. Yeah,
Layered,
They're very
well
layered,
put,
yeah.
but you are a man with words. I like that.
One word
layered.
is layered.
Layered. We like it though. Multiple levels. So how about another layer?
Another layer. How about, I was impressed that the election in Portage, where I live, of James Snyder and Brendan Clancy for our election day. Snyder barely beat, well, not barely, but he beat him. It wasn't too easily, let's say, and he was sweating the whole time, I think. And I'm surprised because a lot of people in Portage who I was talking with thought Clancy was going to win. They were upset with Snyder. It's a typical thing. Somebody gets into office and everybody's upset about them for different reasons. It happens on a national level. People hate Obama for the same kind of reason now. And I thought Snyder would be voted out, but he was not. He was kept in. I think it's a telling sign in the city of Portage. Another Republican mayor is there for 4 years.
Do you think there's any notice by people outside that community that those things are going on in other communities?
I think people look at that. I do. I think people in Portage were looking at Valpo with John Costas being a Republican mayor, and they're going, it worked in Valpo, it could work in Portage, because Portage is much more blue collar than Valpo
But in
is.
Valpo, they elected a bunch of Democratic people
They did.
city council.
Yeah, just like in Portage, they have a lot of Democrats on the council too. To kind of, I think people view it as we're kind of balancing things out. We're going to let the democratic process work. We'll have this Republican mayor, but we like having Democrats on the city council to balance things out and keep an eye on that guy.
Which is really interesting because if you really look, local politics for so much it's not at the same level as national. Even the philosophies are different.
But we understand it that way, I think.
Right.
So.
I will tease the Republicans sometimes in Valpo and say, "That's interesting. You guys are like, government's getting a little bit bigger here. You spend a lot more money, and you're kind of interested in social issues. So that seems contrary to maybe national policy." But so they say it doesn't apply as much locally.
You know what I find interesting
and expansion and economic development when some of the old school residents don't want it, but they're barreling ahead with
Gung ho.
Yeah, it's the ripple effect that always attracts me for these stories. Things that happen internationally or nationally, and they find their way to Northwest Indiana. They always seem to do that. And as an editor, especially, Krista, you're looking for, let's localize that. I bet you say it every other day.
Right.
Let's localize this national wave. And one of the localized stories that we found was Syrian refugees in Northwest Indiana.
Yeah.
Syrian refugees, it's a big deal. They don't want them in Indiana, don't want them in the country. Can you find some in Northwest Indiana? And I just bopped into some in Valparaiso who are there starting a new life. They came here from temporary visas, and they're here after everything kind of happened in the last few months of 2015, and they're still trying to make a life of it.
I remember you told me the other day that story really affected you.
It did, and it did because these people came from another country with no language, very little of the English language, very little money, just a little bit of hope and some prayers. And here they are, like so many of our ancestors. My ancestors from Croatia did the same thing. I don't know about you, Krista.
Yes.
So it's very similar.
My late father.
Yeah. So, but they're here, and amid all this turmoil, and now amid all this.
Why did that touch you so much?
Because I could not imagine doing it personally, Keith. I could not imagine doing that. I'm so pampered, just being this white middle-aged guy in Indiana. You know, I get all these white privileges that come with me, all these privileges, but for them to come here, and now they're being persecuted even more, and they're afraid. A lot of them are. I've talked to them at the end of 2015 with all this uproar. They're afraid of it being here now. The way they look, the way they sound, the way they live, and I find that's very impressive. And they're here right in Northwest Indiana. I mean, we play out this whole international play right here in Northwest Indiana, in our backyard.
How about another story on your side?
Oh, let me see. We're kind of going
I'm
through
just
these.
impressed you can read these notes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think that though the economy seems to be doing well, we have with our steel industry, which we know yields 4 to 5 jobs within the community for every one steel job. They are 6 months without a contract. They're operating on the old contract.
Right.
But ArcelorMittal and U.S. Steel are asking for concessions in health insurance. Costs are still continuing to skyrocket, and the union was complaining. They said, with our deductible and everything else, we are going to lose the gains we made in wages and salaries because we're going to be asked to spend $5,000 to $6,000 a year paying for our own health insurance. And so that is interesting to me, that they're still at an impasse, and they're still, you know, the union claims they figured out a way to help the company save money, but I think the companies are looking way into the long term. And part of that reason is China has continued to make more steel at overcapacity and dump it on our shores.
It's another layered story.
It is.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
It's a huge ripple effect.
Because you've got the import piece,
Yes.
you've got the union piece, you've got stories about the layoffs and the
Right.
shutdowns but yet being involved in workforce issues, you still hear them say, we're looking for good workers and workers for the future and trying to really build that workforce. It's like very complicated.
And all the business people in the community are looking at all these stories because if you're a car dealer or you're a roofer or
You know it's gonna affect you.
you want people to have a salary and a job and doing well because you want them to put a new roof on their house and buy a new car.
And all those good things.
Yeah.
Back to you. This is like
Back and
ping-pong.
forth.
This is like
Ping-pong.
the old Pong game, right? Bing,
And we're
bing.
about as slow as the Pong game, too. You guys are better played, you'll know what I'm talking about.
We'll just move these
Shaking our
across.
notes.
How about the Religious Freedom Restoration Act?
Yeah,
that was
that's something too.
a huge problem in our state and our region. It embarrassed many of us. It embarrassed our state to a lot of. That's how we felt about it. And when Governor Pence, put the stamp on it, and he thought he was going to get away with it in a way, and the next thing you know, it literally within a week or less.
Now that's a story where we didn't take something nationally, internationally, and bring it
We
here.
made it national.
We made it national.
Right, in a very bad way.
I was wondering, you think that even made it internationally? You think people,
I do.
other countries
Oh,
even
I
went like,
do.
what's
I do.
going on over in
I
America?
think it helped them personify who they think we are. Just like
Here's the irony. A lot of states have that law, and it's on the federal books. But I think the fact that Indiana suddenly wanted to do it now to satisfy a group of far-right fundamental Christian, constituents, I think that is what aggravated even the Indiana Chamber, which is usually quite conservative.
You're right.
It was like, this is the least, or should be the least of our worries. We're doing fine. We have good businesses here. We attract really great talent, and we don't want to tell that talent, oh, you're gay. We really don't want you in our state. So.
Well, did you feel like there were stories about the impact of that or the potential impact on a local level? Did you see those? Or was
Well,
it
I know
mostly
Indianapolis
focused
felt
on
it
what might
heavily.
happen?
No, that's for sure. And a lot of threats to Northwest Indiana. We're not going to come to your state involving even Northwest Indiana, Lake County, Porter County, Newton County, whatever it
I
might
think
be.
locally there have been ramifications. I know in Munster, there's a group of citizens who are really pressuring the town council to pass, they want an ordinance passed.
Human rights ordinance.
A human rights
Yeah.
ordinance that might not have any teeth legally, but they want to make a stand in Munster. We don't care, what your proclivities are. You're welcome here. We want you to
Right.
work here, shop here, live here. So I think
So we
that
got
there
that
are
side
pockets.
of it.
Yeah.
Although the only story I remember is about the pizza place, I think, over in Walkerton. or
Yeah,
something
that got the attention.
Yeah.
But that was kind of an anomaly, I believe. Going back to Munster, we should make a mention. Amy Sandler and Nikki Kwasny, who became the poster child,
Yes,
so to speak, poster
nationally,
couple
yes.
nationally for our state, being a same-sex marriage, and they're a wonderful couple. And Nikki passed away in February
Yeah.
of 2015. We should make a mention of that. They had a valiant fight together, and Amy is carrying on that fight,
Yeah.
living in Munster and fighting for that same human rights ordinance that you said. You're right. How much legal bite does it have? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it means something, especially to them.
But it's interesting, if you look at the residents who are behind it, it's a huge swath of
It is.
ordinary people that...
Interesting
you know,
cross-section.
And Munster, I mean, most of the people on the town council are Republican-leaning or Republicans.
Conservative,
So-
at least?
Yes,
Conservative-minded,
conservatives.
yeah.
Yes, so it's
So we're
interesting.
getting down to maybe about 4 minutes or so. So this begins the lightning round, okay, when the Pong thing moves faster.
Right, okay,
So, Krista, another one, just to we make sure we get in before
Yeah,
the end of the
squeeze it
show.
Just really quickly, Purdue merging, PNC, PUC. It seems like it's going to be pretty smooth. I don't quite know how kids are going to get to Westville and kids are going to get
I
from
don't
Westville
either.
to Hammond.
There's going to be a lot of interesting stories.
It's going to
after that
be
happens.
weird, yeah. I think so. It'll be interesting.
The logistics will be the tough part.
Yes.
So there's a prediction for 2016. We'll be talking about that probably next year. How about another one on yours list?
Chicago Cubs fans here, they went nuts in 2015 for obvious reasons, and they can't wait till
Being a
this year.
Cardinal fan, I just can't understand that. but
Oh,
go
let's
ahead.
move along then. It's fine. But that, it's a ripple effect in Chicago that affects Northwest Indiana
They needed
heavily.
something. They really did.
And people were talking about it. People
Yeah.
were excited about it in Northwest Indiana,
It-
strictly. So
It was.
Yeah, on my block alone, I saw 6 blue W flags
that's my
every
point.
time they won.
That's
Yeah,
my point. It's a
yeah.
big deal in this region. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
the bedroom
But
community
the
for
sad
Chicago.
part was there was only a couple of those.
Yeah, well,
And
short-lived, but fun.
short-lived.
Yeah.
How about what's still on your list?
Education, we have ongoing issues all the time. The state legislature did change the law so that the suburban schools got a little bit more money. The urban schools are hurting a little bit more. But also the ISTEP issue. It seems like we just can't get our act together. We revamped, we let go of Common Core, we made the standards higher, and now about 20% of our kids will have, once the grades are official, will have failed the new ISTEP. It was going to be a 12-hour test then. After statewide opposition, they shortened it. So stay tuned for, this affects their school grades, teacher
Yeah.
evaluations.
You wonder at some point if the readers are going to finally say, there's stories constantly about education. I'm just going to quit reading them because
I hope
I
so.
think people have thrown that out
Well,
already.
people might have, but parents have not. I was
Yeah, that's
just at a
true.
Christmas
good
party a
point.
few days ago, and that's all the moms,
got a vested
the
interest
helicopter
there.
moms were
Yeah, we're right
yammering.
there.
And I don't mean that meanly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In a caring way.
Yeah.
How about another story? What do you want us to-
School-related, again, there's a pending lawsuit against River Forest High School by a local couple whose they say son was bullied and persecuted for not praying with the River Forest classes and at events, and that's still pending. ACLU filed that lawsuit on behalf of the couple, and I think there was a settlement on the table, and I'm going to write about that soon. There is a settlement going on, but that could be a ripple effect. Now, you're not allowed to pray.
Always
in school.
interesting, wondering what the motives are there,
Yeah.
And they try to bring it out in the story, but what's
There's
really
layers
behind
for
that?
sure
There's
there. Yeah, no doubt about
that
it.
layer word again.
Yeah, we often talk, we'd love to tell the stories behind the stories.
That we can't
but
say.
you just...
Yeah, it's like the off-the-record
you have-
conversations we have in
right,
2015.
Exactly. You have to attribute things if you're going to be responsible. Darn it.
Yeah, right.
Now,
right.
is it principle or is it reward for doing that, or is it recognition or whatever? It is hard to get that. And you're right, they don't want people to know it too much. How about another one on your side?
Oh my gosh.
With those little cute orange tabs that are sticking out.
Well, just the crimes continue, weird, creepy, sad crimes. One that resonated with me were the skeletonized bodies found, the two Lackey brothers, shot once each in the head.
Right.
It still remains a mystery. They were 16 and 18.
And the body that was found at Emerson School.
Yes.
Before it got kind of boarded up even more.
Yes, and the abandoned, when we really looked at the abandoned school buildings, there's a lot of them. They're in disarray. People in the neighborhood
I hope we're not getting
are very
jaded about some
upset.
of these things, because it does seem to come along, although I was talking to a young person the other day and said, I live in a really safe community. There's never any murders or anything happening here. I'm like, really? I'm thinking, obviously you're young and you don't read the paper or pay attention to this, because there are some things in every
community,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So one last piece maybe
How about something fun? We'll end it fun. Peter Anderson, the owner of Just Osmo's Pizza in Crown Point, he got a coveted spot on the U.S. pizza team last year, and he traveled to Italy to compete in the World Pizza Championships, and he did very well.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a local guy doing extraordinary
That's a
things.
good one. Did you have an upbeat story?
No, I never have it.
What's the story?
You know what? Next year, darn it, that's going to be my first choice. I'm going
We
to
should make that a requirement.
Bring in one
And,
happy ending
Can you
story.
even spin one into a good story here?
Oh, gosh.
The Sonderquist.
There's less murders in the region in 2015.
Well, actually, there are.
See?
We have 12 crime maps that we have online now at the NWI.com, a plug for that. And though it looks horrendous when you look at your own community, actually, crime is still on a downward slope.
that is
believe it or not.
that is the upside.
That's about as upbeat as
And the police chiefs
There
love
she
to hawk
is.
that.
You saw it first here.
Yeah.
Crista Zivanovic.
I'll do better
a
next
positive
year, I
story.
promise.
Well, we just need to get that story written about, too, and in the paper. Can we do that?
Yes,
you think?
yes.
All right. Was there anything that we didn't cover, just again, that we should have done something on?
Well, the transgender issue was huge in 2015, and I don't think we addressed it enough in this region, talking to transgenders
so we're gonna have-
in this
And
region.
stay tuned, because the legislature promises to put together another law that's, I think it's going to embarrass us
So we're
all
going to
over
have
again.
plenty for next year. So I look
Yes.
forward to the show next year.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, both of you.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. It's pretty popular to blame the media for everything that goes wrong. Many believe the media blows it out of proportion or draws attention to the wrong stories. When the media is challenged, their response is often, "We produce what the audience wants." For the most part, they are accurate. Despite people's claim that there is too much blood, violence, and negative stories, the general population is reading, watching, listening, and talking about the news that scares, tantalizes, or irritates them. I hear media people constantly asking for their audience to react. What they mean is, give us constructive, useful feedback. The people who are capable of this are often silent. I experience it the same way for this program. In the 5 years that I have been involved with this show, I've had very little feedback. Yes, I hear from some regular fans and friends. It's the same people, and I do sincerely enjoy their commentary. If you want to have an impact on content, whether the newspaper, radio, television, or other media outlets, let them know your thoughts, particularly when you like something. I know it takes a little effort to send an email or write a note, but do it. I'd like to hear from you, so the next time you find yourself being critical of the stories that are flowing from your media sources, ask yourself, when was the last time I let them know what I liked and wanted to know about? Then take out a piece of paper, turn on your cell phone, or fire up your computer and let us hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching our show. Now is your opportunity to let us hear your reactions and thoughts. I just challenge you to send them. Our email address is listed on your screen, and so is the website. Let me state it for you. focus@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. I will respond to any correspondence you may send. I really would love to hear from you. Don't hesitate, don't delay. Send your comments to me today. How about that for a clever pitch? Make sure you join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.